My name is Sean Egglestone and I'm a registered dietitian, and today we're going to be going over my presentation on heart-healthy nutrition. This is a great presentation to start out on, and my other presentations at seantherd.com will build on the foundation of knowledge that you learn here. In order to have a good understanding of nutrition, it's important to grasp the three macronutrients: proteins, carbs, and fats. Now, proteins are important for tissue building and repair. More of the commonly known sources is meat, but also cheese, eggs, dairy products have protein in them as well. There's also a moderate amount of protein in nearly all foods, including fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Proteins have 4 calories per gram, so keep that in mind. We're going to use that value later in this presentation. If you're interested in learning more about proteins specifically, head on over to seantherd.com, and under my presentations tab, you'll find an entire slideshow just on proteins. Carbohydrates are the second macronutrient that we'll talk about. This is the major source of energy for our body. Fiber is a type of carbohydrate, so diets that are high in carbohydrates are also high in fiber. You don't get fiber from any food that doesn't have carbs in them, and we'll build on that concept later in the presentation. But keep in mind, our body runs on carbohydrates. This is the preferred fuel for our muscles and for our brain, and they're very, very important for overall health and athletic performance. Now keep in mind, with the exception of dairy, carbohydrates only come from plant foods, such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans. Now, just like protein, carbohydrates also have 4 calories per gram. If you're interested in learning more about carbohydrates specifically, I have an entire presentation just on carbs. Fats is the third macronutrient that's often discussed in nutrition, and it's important for tissue integrity. It helps pad our organs. There's a small amount of fat in nearly all foods, such as fruits, vegetables, grains, and beans, but there's a large amount of fat in animal products, such as meat, dairy, as well as added oils like olive oil, canola oil, and vegetable oil. Now, unlike proteins and carbs, fats have 9 calories per gram, so more than twice the calories for the weight of food. And there's a high conversion rate of dietary fat to body fat. So if we overindulge in foods that are high in fat, you're more likely to store that fat than compared to foods that are higher in protein and carbs. Because in the process of storing additional calories from proteins and carbs, your body will actually burn off some calories in that process. But fat is very easily stored in the body. Now, there's 2 additional macronutrients that I feel are very, very important, and we'll talk about those now. The first one is fiber. Now, fiber is a type of carbohydrate, but I think that it should be separated out because it's that important. It is absolutely essential to regulate bowel function. It helps bind and eliminate toxins in our GI tract. It helps feeds the good gut bacteria in our colon and can help reduce our risk for chronic disease and inflammation. Now, fiber is only found in plant foods, such as fruits and vegetables, and in large quantities in whole grains and beans. The good gut bacteria do generate a small amount of calories from fiber, but for all intents and purposes, fiber has 0 calories per gram. And the 5th macronutrient that we're going to talk about today is water. Water is essential for the chemical reactions that occur in our body. It helps regulate our bowel function, temperature control. It helps flush toxins. It's very important for kidney health and reducing our risk for things like kidney stones. There's a large amount of water in foods like fruits, and vegetables, as well as cooked grains and pasta. And water, of course, is 0 calories. Now let's talk about the different food groups. We understand carbs, fats, and proteins. Where do we get them from? So vegetables are very high in fiber, they're high in water, and they have carbohydrates in them, but not a lot. That is why they are so low in calories. Most vegetables only have about 100 calories per pound. They have a small to moderate amount of protein, and they're very, very low in fat. Here are some examples below. Fruit is the next food group that we'll talk about. It averages about 300 calories per pound. Like vegetables, fruits have fiber, but they have more carbohydrates in the form of sugar. They're filled with water. They have a small to moderate amount of protein, and they're very low in fat. This is a quick example when we look at weight loss and dieting. The cantaloupe on the right-hand side has the same amount of calories as the 2 fig Newtons on the left. They have the same fat carb to protein ratio, or the same macronutrient ratio. They have the same calories, yet the cantaloupe will fill you up much more because it has a lot more water and more fiber than the fig Newtons. Water and fiber help fill you up and add bulk to your stomach without adding calories. Now, carbohydrates can be divided in several different ways. If this topic is a little confusing, you can head on over to my website, SeanTheRD.com, and under my presentation tab, I have a whole slideshow just on carbohydrates where I dive into this topic for about 15 to 20 minutes, and we really go over everything you need to know about carbohydrates. But briefly, carbohydrates such as millet and rice and barley have about 500 calories per pound. There's a ton of fiber as well as water in these foods because as they cook, they absorb the water that they're cooking in. They have a moderate amount of protein and typically are low in fat. Beans are about 550 calories per pound. There's more fiber, there's water in them, they have some more carbohydrates in them, they have a little bit more protein in them than grains, but they are still very low in fat. And that's really what we're seeing with vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans. There's not much fat in them. This would be a great example. We have a cup of lentil soup that would take up so much space in your stomach, a lot of fiber, a lot of protein, or we could have 100 calories with 2 chicken nuggets. Now the chicken nuggets don't have any fiber, there's no water in them, but they're high in fat and oils from where they were fried. And so they're going to be higher in calories per pound than the cup of lentil soup. And of course, the lentil soup has a lot of water in it, which doesn't have any calories at all. Meat averages about 1,000 calories per pound. That's a huge jump from beans. That's almost twice the amount of calories. Why is that? Well, because meat doesn't have any fiber, and when we cook it, we're getting rid of all the water. So now the calories go up in relation to the weight of the food. Now, meat is higher in fat than plant foods, and it's higher in protein. So this is going to mean that it has more calories per pound. Now we can take a look at steak versus chicken. One of the questions that I get often is about these two types of meat when I'm working with patients, and I just want you to see that while the chicken is much lower in fat and higher in protein compared to the steak, they have nearly the same amount of cholesterol in them. The cholesterol does not change significantly in meat, whether it's free range, wild, or factory farm raised. Processed carbohydrates. This is where Americans get most of their calories from. chips, crackers, cookies, pastries, desserts, junk food. There's no fiber in these foods. There's no water in these foods. So like meat, they're going to be higher in calories per pound. But now we're seeing the addition of fat in the form of oils. When we have all these added oils in our food, the calorie content of the food goes up, but the weight or the volume of that food doesn't change. That means it's easier to gain weight on these foods because they're high in calories and they don't fill us up very much. Oil is the last group that we're going to talk about today. Oil is 100% fat. And remember, fat is 9 calories per gram. There's no carbs, there's no protein, there's no water, there's no fiber. But there's also no vitamins and no minerals. There's a little bit of vitamin E and there's a little bit of vitamin K, but these two vitamins we can get from other sources in our diet. We don't need to get them from oil. And oil is so nutritionally empty because all of the good compounds are bound to the fiber in the olive. So when the olive is pressed, the oil comes out, but all the good stuff is thrown away. Reflecting back on the first slide that we looked at in this presentation, now we can have a better understanding of what this means. Fruits and vegetables, which are high in water and fiber, are very low in calories, and so 500 calories of these foods will fill up our entire stomach. Potatoes, rice, and beans tend to be higher in carbohydrates, a little bit higher in protein, but they still take up a huge portion of our stomach because they absorb water and they're high in fiber. Now looking at animal products such as meat, meat doesn't have any fiber, there's very little water, and it's higher in fat, which means it's going to take up a smaller amount of space in our stomach for only 500 calories. Dairy products such as cheese tend to be even higher in protein and higher in fat than meat. There's no water and there's no fiber, so they take up a very small amount of space in our stomach but are high in calories. Oils, remember, are 4,000 to 4,100 calories a pound. This means that for only a few tablespoons, we can consume 500 calories. This diagram helps explain why Americans are so overweight, because we have a diet that's centered around meat, dairy products, added oils, and refined grains that are very low in fiber, and processed foods, which is very low in water. So we're eating a diet that's high in calories and low in nutrition compared to the heart-healthy, plant-centered diet that I recommend. Now that we've covered the 3 macronutrients, carbs, fats, and proteins, as well as the 2 additional macronutrients, fiber and water, and we've talked about the different food groups, we can put all of that together. So if we group our plant foods together, that's our fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils, and nuts and seeds, what we find is that these plant foods tend to be very high in fiber, and they tend to be high in water. There's high water content in beans and pasta and fruits and vegetables. And they also tend to be higher in carbs. Remember, most plant foods have a moderate amount of protein, but not as much as animal foods. And they also tend to be very low in fat. So plant foods tend to be very low in calories overall because fiber and water don't have any calories, and carbohydrates only have 4 calories per gram. Now looking at animal foods such as meat, chicken, fish, beef, as well as eggs and dairy products such as milk, cheese, those foods don't have any fiber, they're typically very low in water, and with the exception of dairy, there's no carbohydrates in animal foods. Animal foods tend to be very high in the 2 macronutrients, protein and fat. So what this means is that animal foods, compared to plant foods, tend to be much higher in calories per pound. And this is mainly because they have much more fat in them. Remember, fat is 9 calories per gram, much higher than carbs or protein. So, when we're looking at diets that are higher in nutrients and lower in calories that support overall health and weight loss, what we find is that a diet centered around plant foods is going to be vastly superior to a diet centered around animal foods, such as meat, dairy, and eggs. This is another graph that illustrates the same concept that we've already been talking about. So, in order for most Americans to lose weight, they have to average somewhere around 560 calories per pound. That's right around where the beans and lentils are on the graph. Now, most Americans consume well above 1,000 calories a pound, and the problem with that is, unless you're an elite level athlete, you will continue to gain weight if you have a diet centered around animal foods, processed junk foods, and added oils. Now, of course, nuts and seeds here are high in calories per pound, but we typically only have maybe 1 or 2 handfuls of them a day, if at all. Looking at what we call a plate method, this is one that I've sort of designed, but on my recommended resources page on my website, there's a few other ones you can check out depending on what you like. But during my lunches and dinners, I try and have about half my plate vegetables. I have a piece of fruit. On the quarter of my plate, I have starches such as corn, barley, quinoa, oatmeal, sweet potatoes, or rice. So 75% of my plate is plant foods. That's what you want. You want 75% of your meals, 75% of your diet to be whole, intact plant foods. You need to have 6 to 8 servings minimum, but upwards of 10 servings per day or more of fruits and vegetables. That's why it's so important that you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as well as some snacks if you want. Now, protein should only make up about 1/4 of your plate. Remember, starches, fruits, and vegetables do have small to moderate amounts of protein, so you're getting some from those sources as well. Now, you could have some fish, chicken, or eggs. I wouldn't have any more than 3 to 4 ounces is considered one portion, no more than 6 to 8 ounces per day. But when you switch from chicken and turkey and meat to things like beans, lentils, and tofu, these are going to be lower in calories, higher in fiber. They're going to help you lose weight. They're going to help feed the good gut bacteria in your intestines, and they're also going to reduce your risk for things like colon cancer. So, overall, plant sources of protein are far superior to animal sources of protein. And of course, when it comes to fluids, beverages, make sure that you're drinking mostly water. This is an excellent checklist here by Dr. Greger. You can go on to Google and type in Dr. Greger Daily Dozen PDF. You'll come up with this. This is a great checklist. It shows beans. These help lower our risk for colon cancer. They help reduce our blood sugars for better blood sugar control for diabetics. Berries are on here because they are high in antioxidants, which help fight cancer and free radical damage in our body. So here we have 4 servings of fruits per day, 5 servings of vegetables, such as cruciferous vegetables like kale, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. Those also fight colon cancer. Greens are going to be very low in calories and high in fiber, and they're also going to be really high in minerals and vitamins. Flaxseed is on here because it's great at cancer risk reduction, but of course making sure that you consume it ground. We have some nuts and seeds. These are going to be high in minerals like zinc, selenium, and magnesium. Great for our overall health. Just make sure 1 to 2 handfuls a day, no more, because they tend to be higher in calories, and make sure they're not roasted with added oils or salted. Spices such as turmeric and ginger help combat inflammation and are great for our health. And 3 servings of whole grains. One of the things I love about this graph is it shows you on the right-hand side what the actual serving sizes are. Now, in a perfect world, we would all check these boxes off every single day. However, if you're just getting started, focusing on having beans every day, having a fruit and vegetable with every meal. So if you could have 5 to 6 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, that would put you in a great place. Have some flaxseed, some mixed nuts and seeds if you can. Diverticular disease is not caused by eating nuts or seeds. That is a wives' tale. So if you have diverticular disease, nuts and seeds are just fine. And having 3 servings of whole grains, they're going to be high in fiber, and 3 servings is very easy to get. A slice of bread is 1 serving. You could have some oatmeal for breakfast, some corn tortillas for lunch. Very, very easy to get these boxes done. Now, regarding the exercise box at the bottom, current research shows that 30 minutes of exercise per day is good, 60 minutes a day is great for moderate activity, and 90 minutes is even better. But before you get started on any kind of workout program or exercise, make sure you get cleared by your health practitioner. On my recommended resources page, there is a link for the Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2015 to 2020. And it is a must read. It's a great free PDF put out by the government, and it goes over everything that we really should have every day. So here we have dark leafy green vegetables, red and orange vegetables. So eating the rainbow, eating all the different colors will help improve our health. Having beans, starchy vegetables. So the reason I put this slide up here is because I want you to see exactly how much produce we have to eat every single day. 3 to 4 cups of vegetables, 2 to 2.5 cups daily for fruit. So we're looking at many, many, many cups or servings of fruits and vegetables per day. So 2 servings of fruit and a vegetable a day is not going to be enough. 4 servings is not going to be enough. You have to eat a ton of fruits and vegetables if you want optimal heart health, better control of your diabetes, and if you want to live a long, healthy life and lose weight, it's very, very important you have a diet that's centered around fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found some value in listening to this presentation. If you're interested in diving more into what to eat and how to eat, I have great presentations for each of the macronutrients. That would be the next step that I recommend that you check out. I have a heart healthy shopping and cooking presentation that will show you how I navigate the grocery store. And on my recommended resources page, there are a ton of links for recipes, meal planning, and other nutrition information that I highly recommend. Thanks again for watching.